Hi everyone and welcome back to the George Collection. I'm Rachel Rightside Blonde. There's been a lot of talk about hate in the news lately. Hate speech, hate crimes, and a lot of platforms are using that term ambiguously to silence certain content creators. Just in the last 2 weeks, I've had content taken down for no apparent reason, just community guidelines violation. There's no explanation as to what I said. I can assure you I have no hate speech or anything along those lines in these videos. Perhaps I'm just telling too much truth. Today's article is going to talk about just that, and it's written by one of my favorite George contributors, Tony Blankley. So here we go. This is called The Hating Game. Clinton says he wants to outlaw hate crimes, but really he's playing politics with murder. In politics, there seems to be no end to the intentional misuse of good intentions. Over the last few years, people have thought it would be swell if government passed a law that severely punished criminals who hate their victims at the time they commit a crime. Compliant politicians in 40 states, the District of Columbia, and the federal government obligingly enacted and enrolled hate crimes into various penal codes across the country. Specifically, 19 states and the federal government have increased the punishment for crimes motivated by hatred of the victim's race, religion, color, or national origin. 21 states plus DC have added hatred of a victim's sexual orientation to the list of criminally prescribed thought. In October, after the horrendous kidnapping, torture, and murder of Matthew Shepard, a gay student in Laramie, Wyoming, Bill Clinton saw an opportunity to further ingratiate himself with the public. Wyoming is one of 10 states that have not yet enacted any hate crime legislation. There is something we can do about this type of killing, Clinton proclaimed. Congress needs to pass our tough hate crime legislation. Clinton's proposals would add increased sanctions for crimes motivated by hatred of those who have a different sexual orientation or a disability. Coincidentally, these constituencies are represented by two well-organized interest groups. Of course, if the criminals were not deterred by the death sentence for murder that's already on the Wyoming law books, the addition of a few more years in a federal prison is not likely to deter the fiends from their rendezvous with justice. Clinton's remark was a bid to make a political point. This isn't the first time Clinton has encouraged such public discussion. After the Oklahoma City bombing in April 1995, his spin team was out in full force blaming the incident on my old boss, Newt Gingrich, and the conservative Republicans because we had been arguing for smaller government. Thus, according to Clinton logic, the bomber was just following up on our proposals in summary fashion when he blasted the Alfred P. Murrah building. As a cheerful participant in the grand sport of politics, I can admire a well-delivered political thrust, whether I'm on the receiving or the delivering end of it, and I've been on both. What I abhor is any encroachment on our First Amendment freedoms of thought and expression, and hate crimes are precisely that. After all, it's already a crime to assault, rape, or murder a person. Yes, hate is a thought, and it's not always a bad thought. I hate murderers, child molesters, Nazis, and assorted other barbarians. I suspect that most people do. But under our Constitution, the government may not get involved in the business of designating appropriate or inappropriate objects of hatred, or of love for that matter. I spent 8 satisfying years as a prosecutor putting criminals in cages because of their despicable conduct, not their despicable thoughts. It's true that pernicious ideas that are followed by the multitudes can destroy our civilization. But the lamentable history of man suggests that what is more dangerous than dangerous ideas is the search for and attempted eradication of such thoughts by the government. The search for hearsay inevitably leads to the Inquisition. I am willing to trust in the good judgment of the people to resist the bad and hateful ideas of an individual. This article reminds me of the movie Minority Report and the book 1984 because we're getting in the business of telling people what they can and can't think at this point. In theory, calling out hate crimes seems like it could be a great idea, but how do you define what a hate crime actually is? If the wrong people get in power, they can just dub anything and everything the other side thinks as a hate crime. And you can see really quickly how that could be very dangerous. So I think Tony Blankley did a great job in this article highlighting that concept, which is how do we define a hate crime? When we start going down that path, it can get dangerous really quickly. But what do you think? Personally, in my social media, I've seen inklings of this, and it's kind of scary to think that in America, I can't share my thoughts when they're just thoughts. There is no hate behind them. There is no misinformation behind them. But that is what it's being dubbed as by the powers that be. It's very dangerous. That does it for this episode of the George Collection. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next time.
Magazine, George, which is a hoot of a magazine. I thought you were a lawyer.
I was.
What happened?
Well, we decided, actually taking a cue from folks like yourself and you around the 1992 election, that there was an opportunity here to change the definition of a political magazine. Certainly the way Americans were accessing information about politics and politicians was changing. Candidates were appearing on late-night talk shows, on talk radio, on sitcoms, and there was a kind of a leveling process, and while the rest of media clearly had caught up with that, we felt that political magazines per se hadn't.
Your mother was a hell of an editor at Doubleday.
That's what I hear.
Would she have liked George?
I think she would have.